Welcome to Pints and Politics. I'm your host, Dan Parsons. This is episode number 48, and on each episode of Pints and Politics, we talk with thought leaders, policymakers, people that make a difference in Nebraska. And tonight, we do it, each episode, the way politics ought to be discussed, with a great Nebraska craft beer, or tonight, with a locally sourced cocktail. So welcome to Pints and Politics. Let me introduce our guests tonight. Vanessa Silke is an attorney with Baird Holm Law Firm LLP, and in Omaha. And Vanessa, your work at Baird Holm, you specialize in real estate development, real estate law, water, energy, and natural resource law, and you do it with grace and a smile on your face, and I've watched you do it.
Of course.
So welcome.
Thank you.
And Vanessa, you, I think, compete with our friend Kevin Shin. I think you're the only, other than Kevin Shin, only 3-time guest on Pints and Politics.
We need a fancy jacket or t-shirt.
I think we do.
Like Saturday Night Live. So, nice.
Because Vanessa, we met because of your involvement in craft beer, because you represent Nebraska Craft Brewers Guild.
Yep.
And we did the Peace Summit way back in episode number 22 in Omaha. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Big
and
crowd.
A room full of 300 people.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. And then you were kind enough to come back for episode 29 with your law partner David Levy, and we talked and with the mayor of Norfolk, Josh Moning.
Great friend of the firm. Great friend. Great mayor.
So welcome back. It's kind of you to join us again.
Thank you.
And you bring a wonderful guest. Let me introduce Cody Schmick. And Cody is the managing partner at Kinkaider Brewing Company and Sideshow Spirits. You opened with some partners, Kinkaider Brewery in Broken Bow in 2014, right?
Yep, correct.
You've expanded to Grand Island, Lincoln, just down the street, and Omaha. And then in just a couple years ago, you opened Sideshow Spirits.
Yep.
And so welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And
Excited to be here.
It's great. We've known each other for a few years, and I appreciate what you've done here in Lincoln.
Thanks.
With Kinkaider Brewing.
Yeah.
And now with Sideshow Spirits. And as you can tell, you brought some supply.
We did, yeah. I didn't come empty-handed, and thanks for having me. I'm a first-timer. I haven't been here. Maybe I'll come back again.
Yeah, we'll have you back.
So Kinkaider Brewing, we opened in 14, like you said. We have had this dream of opening a micro distillery, and we feel like craft distilling and local distilling is going to grow. We're actually betting a lot of money that it's going to grow over the next few years, the way craft beer has grown up to this point. So we are Lincoln, Nebraska's first ever legal distillery. I got to make that distinction, legal distillery, because there's been some moonshiners here over the years. We tell that story at our place during tours and tastings. But yeah, we're working mostly focusing on bourbon and stuff that goes into a barrel, which definitely takes time. But in the meantime, we've got some fantastic cocktails that we're building. Canned cocktails are exploding in the market right now. There's only 7 varieties in the state of Nebraska. We make 4, and then our friends at Brickway make the other 3 that are locally made. Yeah, in Omaha. So then we're doing a little bit of cider there as well. So the space is 16th and P right downtown Lincoln here. Putting a lot of investment into it, making just a great space that people can come in and have a high-end cocktail, good bourbon, good cider. And then we're pushing some of these products out to the market too.
And it's great. And what are we drinking? We are drinking one of your cocktails.
Yeah, so you guys both have our Green Dryad Cucumber Mint Cooler. So it's kind of our take on the classic mojito with a super fresh mint and cucumber in there. And then I'm actually drinking our very first ever bourbon, which I'm really excited about. So this is 100% Nebraska corn. Aged in a New American Oak charred barrel. And this one sold out really, really quickly for us. I saved a few bottles for special occasions.
Very nice.
So I brought one with me today.
Very nice. Well, cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. This tastes fantastic.
Oh my goodness. Well, We already had one.
Yeah.
You're ahead of me.
We're one ahead of you. But
I will catch up.
You will catch up. Well, I'm just delighted you guys are both here. As you guys know, I've been a fan of craft beer for years. I've watched Vanessa and her team just do some amazing work over at the legislature because this is it has been a new industry.
Mm-hmm.
So Vanessa, talk a little bit about maybe what you've done the last few years with the Guild and the influence you've had with really a bipartisan group of state senators.
That's a great point, and the first one I want to start with, especially with a new governor, whoever that might be next year, and at least 13 new senators. I just want to highlight that history that the Nebraska Craft Brewers Guild, Cody, you've been a part of it since I've been involved from the very beginning. We have probably the most wide-ranging coalition of senators who vote in favor of expanding opportunities for growth of these businesses here in Nebraska. Time after time, they're here for it.
Because it's a local economic development tool.
Yes. And so Cody can expand on this part, but as far as my role and my partners and colleagues at Baird Holm, we have a long history of supporting the growth of economic development right here in Nebraska. We do that in so many different areas of the law. This is one particular area that I brought over with me because of the experience I had with a number of craft beer licensee owners, and started that process right before I switched firms to Baird Holm. And since then, you guys can't get rid of me, I guess.
Yeah.
So every session, there's been something either affirmative that we need or defense.
Fighting,
which was an unfortunate couple of years.
That's when we met.
Yes, we met because of that, and it was because of fans of craft beer and community members who supported us that really put those problematic bills that had been introduced out of the picture entirely.
And with force.
Yes,
full force. There was, you talk about hearing rooms packed.
Yes.
Lots of beards and tattoos.
Yes, and some ladies.
Yes.
I wear my pink. And that process for me, I'm a parent and a big nerd. And so getting people involved in democracy in a way that's relatable to them. So many people testified for the first time ever on a bill and learned how a bill becomes a law or how we stop a bill from becoming a law by being members of the Guild or participating. And now with distilleries, last year and this year, we're working on that same path as Cody described. And I'll just highlight two things in particular, and then I want to spend time focusing on all the good stuff you guys do to actually make fantastic products, hire people, and develop. So from a legal perspective, we spent a lot of time developing and revising the craft beer laws. And so initially we had obtained 5 satellite locations for each licensee for craft beer. So all those licensees can directly deliver their own beer to those locations.
Which was a huge deal.
Huge deal. Yeah. Huge deal. And we fought against some other issues and hashed out some rules and regulations cooperatively with the commission. This year, after a very long fight and a long wait, we were able to negotiate a limited right of self-distribution. So this would allow craft beer licensees to directly self-distribute their product to places that they don't own. So grocery stores, local bar, restaurants. It's one step in the right direction. Of course, we want more, but we'll start for that. For distilleries, as of last year, we had the very lowest production cap in the entire country. It was 10,000 gallons.
Wow.
And Brickway, which is a little bit further along production-wise than you guys were at the time, they actually hit the cap and had to stop producing in the middle of the pandemic, which is ridiculous. So last session, we worked with Senator Tony Vargas, and of course, Governor Ricketts signed a bill that expanded that production cap to 100,000 gallons. And then this session, we got 5 locations for craft distilleries. And next session, we're going to continue to work on other things that you need to grow your business here in Nebraska. And the last little nugget I'll put before I stop talking is just to highlight the wide range of businesses who choose to invest, the people who own these businesses, they choose to invest right here in Nebraska in communities throughout the state. And
large, small,
everywhere.
Omaha, Lincoln, Broken Bow.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's dollars in the state that then multiply with visitors from all over the world. So my job as an attorney is to make sure that clients can grow and that Nebraska is their first choice. They don't have to leave with their families. They can stay here. And that has been a fantastic just outcome to see as this has grown.
Well, Cody, talk a little bit about Broken Bow. And
Sure.
I'm familiar with the community. I've been up to your brewery several times and have friends up there and love the sand hills. We were just talking, my grandparents lived in Thedford, just down the street. And so what's that been like the last few years of developing?
Yeah, so a lot of people ask us, why'd you guys open in Broken Bow? Well, we lived there, you know what I mean? So we wanted a place that we could go and we invested in that community. We continue to invest in that community. We're actually doing another big build out there. We've added on several buildings. We have 17,000 going on 20,000 square feet.
Wow.
It's a mile north of Broken Bow. So if you think Broken Bow's in the middle of nowhere, go another mile north up into the sandhills, and that's where our farm is. So we're on a 4-acre farm up there.
Did people think you were crazy building that far out?
Absolutely. So most people are like, man, if you're going to build it here, you got to be right in the square. You got to be right on the highway. And we just liked that area. I still think it's the best place to drink a beer in the state of Nebraska. You sit on our patio, look up into the sandhills.
There's nothing else like it in the world.
Yeah, it's a beautiful area. So the folks in Broken Bow, there's populations around 3,500. They love us. They love that. In a lot of ways, and not trying to toot our own horn too much, but Kinkaider kind of put Broken Bow on the map.
Absolutely.
A lot of people are like, oh, Broken Bow, Kinkaider, and they associate those two, and we love that. But then this 5 tap room thing, we've taken full advantage of this. So we are at 4 going on 5 of these satellite licenses. Expanding across the state. So Grand Island is more of a restaurant focus, and Lincoln's more of a tap room and event focus. And then we just opened Omaha 6 months ago. And so we've got a lot of cool things in the works. But one of the things that you guys touched on a little bit, Vanessa touched on, is that working through some of these legal processes and putting these rules and regulations and laws into place all around Nebraska alcohol has been pretty cool, because you do see people across the political spectrum supporting this. My brother once said, he goes, man, even if you don't drink beer, you still are a fan of Nebraska craft beer, because they love seeing what groups like us and Scratchtown and a lot of these breweries are bringing to not only their small communities, but adding into Omaha and adding into Lincoln and adding into the overall culture. And really beer culture is incredibly strong, which I know you know, Dan, and it's this group of people that think all over the board, but what brings them together is beer, right?
Well, and that's why we started Pints and Politics. It was, the union of the work that you've done in the legislature and our little idea of Pints and Politics. I just was at the right place at the right time. And but that's why I wanted to start this podcast, and that's why I appreciate what you both do, is because if we're going to talk about politics, we should do it in a way that brings us together. And I don't know anything in this day and age.
This may be the only thing.
This may be it. And so let's continue to set that tone.
One of the cool things that we have experienced, and 5 years ago or whenever, I think was it 2016, that we kind of had that battle on our hands. At that point, it was all about the defensive, right? And like, oh, what do we got to do to protect what we currently have? And now we're thinking totally different. We've flipped that, and we're like, okay, what do we want that can grow our communities, that can grow our staff? Like our little company, we have 105 people on payroll now. You know what I mean? Across 5 locations. So we're adding jobs, we're adding, and it's
paying taxes.
And for our crew, it's more. I say this, but I think for a lot of them, it's more than a job. They get to be a part of this really cool culture of growing not only their communities, but internally we have just like, I don't know, a great feel. And it's more than just a paycheck. Obviously we all have bills to pay, but man, being a part of something like this and growing these brands, and when people say, oh, Kinkaider, I know this beer, this is my favorite beer, everyone on our crew takes pride. And the only way we can do that is if our local government helps kind of build this, this thing that'll foster this kind of environment, and the 5 tap rooms, the limit, the raising the limit on production, and just some of these things that are maybe kind of antiquated laws that just never got cleaned up or never needed to be cleaned up. There's not really a ton of opposition at this point because everybody wants to see what we're doing grow across the board. I mean, really, there's not much negative to it at this point. So
I know we've had this conversation, Vanessa, in the past. It is also an economic development tool for the state. I mean, how do we attract young professionals, old professionals? How do we keep people in Nebraska? How do we attract those professionals, or any field? It doesn't have to be white collar, blue collar. How do we attract people to Nebraska and keep people in Nebraska with cutting edge entertainment and something that's cool? And craft beer and distillery, craft cocktails fills that void.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. And for so many of the communities outside of Lincoln and Omaha, that is a huge driver for people to just come and build community, which is something that's entirely, been decimated because of COVID, because of political divide. Even in a red state like Nebraska, we still have a lot of, torn relationships that need to be mended. And there are opportunities throughout Nebraska in those locations where that is the spot where it happens. And it's your neighbor, it's your mayor in one case. It's the guys that worked at the economic development, center before they started their own brewery. There are people who had normal everyday jobs and they quit it all to build this in their neighborhoods and their communities. So from that point, it's very important. As far as legally and just tax-based wise, this is a no-brainer. It's Nebraskans investing in Nebraska. And I think for everybody, it's alcohol, it's a highly regulated industry. But what's fascinating to me as a nerd attorney, it's always implied, is, every state has a little bit different way of regulating the rights that craft beer licensees have or distilleries have. And some are more liberal than others as far as, the open door they give to start that business. And in Nebraska, we're very unique. I think that we have tailored our statutes so that there's a baseline for public health and safety and taxes and alcohol content, which are important. But beyond that, think just within your own group of locations and your 2 businesses, the ways and the opportunity that you can figure out how to tailor if you're going to have a restaurant or if you're going to do just your own tap room or have a C license and bring in alcohol from the full spectrum of producers from anywhere. It has given the most leeway for people to figure out what works best for them and make investments accordingly.
The last time in episode, 22, way back when, we were seeing the beginning of this tremendous growth of the industry. Has that plateaued? Where are we at? I don't mean to put you on the spot with numbers, but where are we at with both, and you mentioned a little bit about the distillery, how that is set to grow. But maybe back up a little bit and talk about the industry and how it has grown, the beer specifically.
So you can add to this. Sure. On the beer side, I've seen numbers just in prep for this most recent session to figure out where self-distribution and where these different rights might lie. And so lots of reference points to the Liquor Control Commission's numbers that they have on production, which have been a little bit all over the place for everybody. Most people are emerging from the pandemic. Some have found great success for some of the other leeway that they can get, but they're still, we're still working through supply chain for canning, still working through some of that rebound economically. And so we didn't have anybody in the guild go out of business during the pandemic.
Wow.
Everybody hung on, which was a huge deal. Especially for a while when everything was shut down, you got to do to go or go buy it from the grocery store if that was distributed there. Distilleries, though, I've seen an exponential growth. We're still relatively small. We're not Kentucky by any means, but but just we're up to 12 licensees right now.
I think so.
Really?
Yeah.
And you're set to expand location-wise almost immediately. So
yeah. So in the craft beer world right now, craft beer has always been about quality over quantity, as you know. And so we were kind of screaming in growth here in Nebraska. I don't say it's plateaued because there's still growth happening. It has slowed up a little bit. And you could say it's supply chain, you could say pandemic, whatever. But I think it was a big win that everybody came out. Business models are changing a little bit. There's kind of 2 groups of business. So the one group would be like us and Zipline and Cross Strain and we're brewing to distribute. And then there's another group that is a very successful model that is brewing to take care of their own tap room, and maybe a couple other accounts. Both models work really, really well, but you kind of gotta go all in, or you gotta just take care of home base. And I'm seeing a bigger divide between the two groups, where it kind of just seemed like it was this kind of slow, build up, and now we kind of just have the groups that are taking care of their home base. And then we have the groups that are distributing and still have their tap rooms as well.
So is also the difference between those two groups food centric, more
not necessarily.
Or not? Okay.
Not necessarily. So some of the guys, I think Cross Strain has two or three now, and Zipline has I think 3 or 4 now. And none of those guys do food at all. They work with local food trucks,
true.
things like that.
Yep.
For us, we are going away from the food model. So our Broken Bow and our Grand Island locations are full restaurants, but we will probably never open another full restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to just focus on that tap room model, and in hopes that maybe at some point we can maybe add a couple locations onto that as we're maxing these out. But really what a lot of these places are becoming is just like their neighborhood or their town hub.
Yes.
And they're really focused on that piece of it.
Mm-hmm.
They're having, fundraisers for, somebody that's going through a tough time, or they're having, Girl Scout cookie pairings and they're selling a bunch, so they're really becoming this hub, not only in these small communities, but in the neighborhoods in Omaha and Lincoln as well, which is kind of cool to see. I mean, really, if you look back pre-Prohibition, that's really how it was. Everybody kind of had their own little brewing company that serviced their area, and I love that it's getting back to that. It's a lot of fun.
Well, and you think about all of the ethnic diversity in this state, and I'm talking about European ethnic diversity. I mean, there was such a rich heritage of beer, right, in those cultures. And for the Czechs and the Bohemians and the German heritage in Nebraska, it's like, oh, I can go down to my local beer hall now again. Yep. I mean, it's tradition, it's family, it's community. Yep. I just think it's a beautiful continued industry in the state.
Yeah, where we see that the breweries still growing, the growth has slowed slightly. Distilleries, I feel like we're like this right now. We're just growing like crazy, and the folks that are doing it, Lazy RW out in Moorfield, Nebraska.
Where?
Moorfield, Nebraska. It's right outside of North Platte.
Okay.
I mean, it's like literally
Lincoln
a town.
County on a ranch.
I'll bet there are not even 100 people in this town.
I thought between politics and music, I'd been in every town in the state.
You have one to add to your list.
I do,
yeah. So they're called Lazy RW, good buds of ours.
Yeah, I've seen the
just
brand,
doing some fun kind of moonshine type feeling stuff. And Zach in Omaha is killing it with Brickway. Soldier Valley is kind of going a whole different direction. They're going more of a national, and they're getting some Lee Greenwood bought into the company.
Oh, really?
You've heard about that. So he's kind of pushing that nationally. They're just pushing a couple bourbons. But a lot of these guys are doing this on 1 gallon small stills that they're just pushing stuff out. But we're seeing that growth in that. And I really think, looking at what's happening on the coast and in other states, craft distilling will continue to grow. Maybe, it's never going to catch up to beer in the sense of just gallons, because it's different, right?
Sure.
A gallon of bourbon is different than a gallon of beer.
Right. Yeah.
But we see a ton of growth. Like I said, our group is investing a ton into it. We started working on this project about 3 years ago. We're seeing some good initial growth. We're actually doing an upgrade to our building right now, adding some private tasting rooms, and we're going to really invest in the tourism aspect of it.
Yes.
So we took a whole group to Kentucky, and we jammed out 8 distillery tours in 2 days. And it was if you've never taken that trip.
Do you remember a lot
I do,
of them?
yeah.
Okay.
We spaced it well. We ate, we drank water. It was good. But we just saw what in Kentucky, and I know that's kind of the gold standard for distilling things. It's like our craft beer scene here. It's there. So craft beer is kind of in its infancy stages there, where distilling is huge. Where here, craft beer is huge and distilling is still growing. But the thing that we saw time and time again is people want to come in, they want to do a tour, they want to do a tasting, and so we're really investing into making our tour one of the best tours in the state. So
I'm curious, Vanessa. You have a broad portfolio of clients and work that you do, including one of my favorite topics that you've been on, you and David, renewable energies.
Of course.
But to be on the leading edge with Baird Holm in developing and nursing and the day-to-day and the year-to-year development of this industry, it just has to be so satisfying. So,
it really is. I don't get bored in my job. I have David Levy and my partner David Levy, and I probably have the most varied practice areas of focus that, all in one kind of person. This has been one of the most rewarding client-based folks. You guys are my favorites.
She has to say that.
I haven't heard her say that to others.
I really enjoy all of my clients, but this group on the beer side and now developing into the distillery side, to bring so many people together who don't agree on everything. There's over 70 members of the guild now.
Wow.
There was like a dozen when I started.
Wow.
So my client counseling, my effort to bring people to consensus or to help guide them through that process of I need to hear this from you to know what I'm going to go get for you. And that has been a heck of a ride. And even when people aren't agreeing necessarily internally, we always come to that consensus point and then we go and execute. And so that's been incredibly rewarding. The last little thing I want to plug before we get too far along here is the craft cocktails. So the other thing that we finished last year that we accomplished, again, with Senator Vargas, Senator Lowe, and Governor Ricketts, prior to last year, because this had hard alcohol in it, it would have been taxed as if the entire can was full of hard liquor. And so we accomplished a huge thing that's going to facilitate the growth of craft cocktails market by altering the tax rate so that it's tied more closely to the actual ABV for the drink itself, which was a huge credit to the legislature and the governor for working with us on that.
I mean, it was a non-starter. The way the tax was written, the law was written before, we had everything developed. We weren't even going to do it unless it changed.
It didn't pencil out.
It didn't pencil out. It was just too expensive. And that's the reason there's only 7 brands in the entire state right now, because a year ago, you would lose money doing it, essentially. Wow. So there was not enough meat on the bone to make it happen. So we had these all in the pipeline, and we had been developing them, hoping that we could get this changed, knowing that we'd probably get it changed. There really wasn't much opposition. It was just one of those things that had to get cleaned up in order for this to start developing. So now that it is cleaned up, I'm sure as you guys go to your grocery stores and stuff, you're seeing not only some local ones pop up, you're seeing ones from all over the country.
Oh, sure, because they've benefited as well.
Yes, yep. And
as it should be.
They would skip over this state because the tax laws were so. With this particular type of product, it was just a non-starter. So,
well, as we begin to wrap up, I don't want to forget to have people have an opportunity, because I just did this today. You can actually become a member of the Guild of just Joe Six-Pack, right? Yeah. And I did that today.
Thank you.
Well, why I hadn't done that before after all these years, but
the
anyway.
Executive Director Bree Schuler will very much appreciate that.
I got a note from her immediately.
That's awesome. She's solid.
But anyway, people can do that who want to support the industry. Mm-hmm. Just go to the Nebraska Craft Brewers Guild.
Yep.
And you can become a member, and you get some swag, and you get some discounts, and you get to support the industry. So that's
very cool.
Thank you.
That's very cool. You're very welcome. Yeah. And Cody, just as we begin to wrap up, Kinkaider and Sideshow Spirits, obviously Broken Bow, Grand Island, Omaha, and just down the street here in the Haymarket.
Yep.
And in these cocktails, again, we can find all these in most anywhere that you would buy alcohol.
Yeah, we have pretty wide distribution. One of the things that makes us a little different, we're in that kind of top 10 breweries in the state, production breweries. We're the only one that hasn't gone outside of Nebraska yet. We're really just focusing on Nebraska and making sure that we're taking care of our home crowd before we go on tour. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, cool. we do. So we have Kinkaider down here in the Haymarket. Come see us. Sideshow Spirits, we do a great tour at 1630 P Street, still downtown Lincoln. And Lincoln's first ever legal distillery. So, yeah, come check us out.
I took a class of law students when I guest taught. Oh, yeah. I brought them to Sideshow for the class so they could learn about prepping expert witnesses for litigation. And then we took them on a tour, and I'm teaching again this semester, and they've told me, you and the tour were their favorite part of like
No,
law school
it's a
for
great
some
tour,
of them.
yeah.
Well, you're locked in for now. You'll
Oh,
be,
yes.
yeah.
Yes.
We got to do it every year now
Yes,
with all the new students.
Vanessa emeritus wherever
Yes.
at the law school.
Yep.
Well, let me thank our sponsors, Baird Holm LLP. Thank you, Vanessa, for your kind sponsorship. The crew at BCom Solutions, Courtney, Rachel, and your team, who do all of the production, editing, and distribution of Pints and Politics. Kim Remington is the operations manager at Parsons Public Relations. Pints and Politics theme music is written and performed by Jack Rodenburg. Fuse Coworking, the home of our studio, and it's also the home of Parsons Public Relations, the Nebraska Craft Brewers Guild, and especially our guests. Let me pour one more little sip. Vanessa Silke, Cody Schmick. Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.